Now this D is one of John Deere's, they call them Exhibit B Deeres. They made 50 of these. In 1930 they were experimenting, toying with the idea of building crawlers out of them, and they built these with, they experimented with the bigger engine. It's got the big flywheel, the newer engine, and these were, like I say, they were destined to be crawlers, which they did experiment with on these. They made 50 of them, and they have the experimental enclosed steering where the originals would have been open. Have the heavy-duty front hubs on the wheel. They were cast iron covers. They made them real unique. This is number 50. This is the last one off the assembly line. As near as they can tell, they talk about 9 or 11, I can't remember, that were actually experimented with as crawlers. And they did not work out. They got called back. They were shipped to Havre, Montana and experimented with, and they just didn't work out. So they were turned back into to regular farm tractors. This one was never a crawler. This one was like I say, it was the last one off the assembly line, but it was, by then they had pretty much given up on the idea of it working. I got this thing out of Canada. It was up in close to where it was shipped. It was kind of a belly down tractor, and all the experimental stuff was there, the steering and the wheels and everything, so I was lucky on that part, and finished putting it back together. It was kind of like the AR was. The radiator and the hood and fenders and stuff were missing, but that was all just regular production stuff, so it pieced back together real good. I've gone through it. Everything inside is new, but I'll keep it this way unrestored just because of the experimental parts on it. They were experimenting with they had the cast covers. Don't quite understand that. I guess they thought for strength with the crawler maybe, but they actually have cast covers on the transmission and engine, kind of like they had on the Spoker D in earlier years. And then when they went to 10, then they went back to experiment with that. They've got all X numbers on them. And like I said, the steering, that was experimented with. And the big hub wheels, they have these huge hubs. And the only thing, we've talked about it, and the only thing we can think is that these were built with no steering clutches when they were crawlers. And they had trouble steering them. They wouldn't turn. And the idea was, I think, is that the heavy hub was for strength when they were trying to get it to gouge in and turn. They run high skid bands just trying to get them to steer, and that was the biggest problem they didn't handle. And this, as far as I know, this is the only set of original wheels that have surfaced like this, and they were only found on these 50 tractors. And but like I say, the engine, this was what actually would have come out in later years with the big flywheel and the big thick head. And it's just the later engines, basically what it was. They wanted more horsepower, and that's what they were toying with, was the higher horsepower engine. John Deere was trying to get into the crawler market, but the D's just, there's several versions of it in the archive photos. You know, they tried different track versions on it, and it just seems like none of them worked. They absolutely did not work. There's been a couple of these tractors that have surfaced that were true crawlers, that really were of the 9 or 11, whatever it is. And one of them they're putting tracks on right now, and the other one they did put tracks on it. And you know, I think they used them off a clee track, got as close as they could to making them authentic. So there is a couple that they have played with.